Max.
Hey, Max.
And I'm Izzy.
Hello.
And we're with the Santa Barbara Middle School Teen Press.
Oh, great. Okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
And we read that you have been the sound editor in many Star Wars-related movies and TV shows. How did you become interested in Star Wars and this job?
Well, I became interested in Star Wars by seeing the movie as a 5-year-old. I saw the first movie in 1977, and I was a huge fan, just like a lot of kids probably were. And it got me really thinking about who makes these movies and how are they made. You know, Star Wars was a universe that was supposed to be this galaxy that was a long time ago in a faraway land, and far away, and it was a lived-in universe and it had a feel. And part of I was like, how do these movies get made? And the first time I even thought about what a director was through seeing a picture of George Lucas sitting in his director's chair next to Alec Guinness, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I was like, who is that guy? He wasn't I didn't see him in the movie, and my mother told me that's a film director. And just by chance, Lucasfilm was located in Northern California, and that's where I grew up. So I actually became, my first job for George was a video games tester.
Yeah.
I was a games tester. I was 17 years old, and I got to work for his company, and I just made an impression with some of the people there, and they wanted to give me more jobs. And George was always investigating new technologies, and I got to be part of that. And we built a sound editing technology on this TV show called Young Indiana Jones Chronicles that we ended up using on the Star Wars prequels. So it was like just a matter of, getting in, being very lucky and humble about where I was, and then being able to work with a team really well and build that over time. Now I'm a supervisor, and I hire crews, and I bring people in, and it's all about teamwork and not so much the technology. A lot of it can be taught, but I want to be with a really good team who's going to have my back, and we're all going to have fun together, and there's sometimes a high-pressure environment.
I read that you started at Lucasfilm as a game tester.
Yes.
How did you become a sound editor, and what was the evolution of your job?
Well, that just as I was saying, sort of that it's just about staying in a place and working with the team and having people like you and feel like you can. Well, the one thing about George Lucas was he was never into, this is the job you're going to do forever and you're stuck in this position. He always gave you the ability to sort of move around, and I saw new technology being developed at Lucasfilm, which was using a computer to do sound editing, which now is pretty commonplace. But back then it was all tape-based, and you had to cut and splice tape together, and with razor blades and tape, and actually make things work with old material technology. So he wanted to develop something to make these new Star Wars prequels in the 90s. He wanted to make episodes 1 and 2 and 3 with new tech, and so I got to be part of that. I got to come on to that, learn from the masters that had come before me in tape and sound design, and then also teach them something. So it was a nice relationship. I got to learn and teach at the same time. So that was a really fun and fulfilling job.
And Julian Slater is also being recognized tonight, but for sound mixing. And
Right.
how is sound editing different from sound mixing?
Well, sound editing, I'd say, is the choices of the sounds you pick. Like sound editing, the technical term is putting sounds in synchronization with picture. So it's if you have an explosion sound, we go through the library and find something that might be really cool to use an explosion, maybe sweeten it with a lion's roar and some kind of big booming drum kind of sound, and maybe a Formula One racer in there, and we'll put those kind of all those files kind of together and make an explosion. We put it in exact synchronization with what's happening on screen. And then the mix is a matter of balancing everything. Now you have all those sounds at your disposal. You'll see like a mixing console that'll look like an airplane cockpit. It'll have just like row after row of little slices of the console, and that's where you're taking volume control. You're saying, what do we want to hear in this scene? Do we want to hear the dialogue of the actors more? Or do we want to hear the environment they're in? Like if they're in a jungle, do we want to hear the insects playing louder? Or do you want to hear their dialogue? And then we have the music that's part of that. How much of the music do you want to hear? How thematic do you want it to make it? How emotional do you want to have the music take the viewer into the scene? So the mix is about the balance and the position, and like how a lot of movie theaters have surround sound and they have like a subwoofer for the low frequencies. All that, those choices are made during the mixing. Especially the mixing is also part of the recording of the actors on set when we make the movie. So that's how the two jobs sort of balance together. They're very hand in hand. You couldn't have one without the other.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us
Thank you
tonight.
very much.
It was
Have a great
nice
night.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.